I am so honored to get to introduce Tina Moffett, Principal Analyst at Forrester. In her role, Tina is focused on prescriptive and predictive analytics, measurement tools, and technologies that support marketing insights and strategies. Today, we get to hear her take on how to survive and even thrive in today's dynamic environment. Welcome, Tina.
Great. Thank you, Lauren. And thank you for the Telian team for inviting me today. I don't know how I'm going to follow up with those introductions with corporate Natalie, but I'll try my best to keep people engaged. I'm super excited to be here to share with you the latest trends in marketing strategy, consumer trends, and hopefully leave you with some best practices on how you can navigate through these very challenging times as well. So let's get started. Right now, we are in a time of disruption. And I like to use this slide to show, we live in a vast world with different connectivities, and showing that people are connected at any given point in time. Competition is increasing. Consumers have access to brands across various devices. Content is just exploding. And a CMO's job is 10 times harder than it was 20 years ago. They need to keep up or lose market share. I think the next slide really depicts on how we can view this market. Think about how the customer life cycle has been condensed. You could be watching a television, whether it's linear or connected, then a Charmin ad pops up. And in an instant, you can order Charmin through your Alexa or whatever connected device that you have. So that life cycle of maybe that was a little bit longer for consideration has condensed. And consumers are empowered and connected. Right. And at Forrester, we administer lots of consumer surveys over the years. And what we've identified was that consumers all have these 5 common attributes. They are kind of, they understand what they want when they want it, right? We're in the selfie era, right? So they want to ensure that they have the best possible experience for themselves. They're really savvy with information. In fact, there's so much content on the internet. There's not enough time in a person's lifetime to consume that content. There is a really interesting relationship between digital devices and physical integration. Now, think about it. You could go shopping on Wayfair and visualize a product in your home. Or you can shop for glasses via Warby Parker, and you can try on the glasses right in the convenience of your living room or even in your bed using your device. Consumers use a ton of devices. I think the average now is about 3 devices per person on average that a person has. That means that they have this ability to connect to their friends and families, to go shopping, connect with brands at any given point in time. And finally, they have a high willingness to experiment. One of my favorite stats that we have here at Forrester is back in, I believe, 2008, 2009, we saw a significant increase in willingness to experiment from the late 90s. And I think this is an indication that consumers are willing to try different areas, try different apps, different technologies to make their lives easier. Now, the next slide shows us that the pandemic has been a shock for existing shopping habits of consumers. When we ask, thinking about the activities that you've started during COVID, please indicate how likely you are to continue the following activities. So there's more online ordering from restaurant using a delivery option online, but even like purchasing groceries online and using digital or contact payments. So all of the pandemic has certainly accelerated new habits that really are sticking. And some of these habits benefit particular companies and brands and sellers, and others infer shifts to the type of interaction or consumptions that consumers want. And in the next slide, it demonstrates, we demonstrate how marketers are no stranger to disruption, right? The consumer experience ecosystem has been transforming at an aggressive pace for years. And our current macro level health and economic issues continue to exist in addition to the previous modes of disruption. And the disruption on the next slide indicates that the advertising ecosystem, and even kind of the entirety of the marketing ecosystem, so advertising, marketing, loyalty, has been disrupted by what we call at Forrester data deprecation. Well, data deprecation, as we define it, is the roadblocks in place that prohibit brands from accessing data and information from third-party sites, sometimes with even in their own site, to make decisions. And it's not just cookie deprecation, right? It's not just deprecating the third-party cookie or Apple ITP, Firefox, ETP, a lot of the MAIDs restriction that you see in the lower left corner. But it's also the rise of privacy regulation on a state level, and in Europe with GDPR, California CPRA, that is starting to kind of slow down a brand's initiatives to collect and access and use consumer information. At the same time, consumers are becoming more privacy aware. We know that there's an increase in installation of ad blockers and do not track and clearing browser cookies. We also know that walled gardens are getting even higher, and there's more of them, right? When we think of walled garden, we automatically think of Facebook, Amazon, and Google. But because of rise of new technologies like data collaboration tools or data clean rooms, it enables retail groups, retail media groups, retailers, publishers, media companies to create their own walled gardens so that they can interact directly with the brand. All of this disruption in the ecosystems having two effects. One is it's preventing more access to data, and two, it's actually preventing cross-channel insights as well. But as indicated in the next slide, B2C marketing executives still have these competing priorities, regardless of what's happening in the ecosystem. Year after year, when we ask this question, the number one priority always pops is improving ROI effectiveness. Marketing leaders want to see those ROI numbers increase as their spend increases as well. Alignment becomes essential as well, because marketers need to collaborate with other departments. I believe this was accelerated within the pandemic because, let's say, maybe general manufacturing brands or consumer product brands who are spending big media dollars in certain DMA areas wanted to be sure that they actually had the product in that area to advertise. So we saw an increase in collaboration. At the same time, because of data deprecation, we saw an accelerated focus on post-sale customer engagement. Right? This was because the very mechanism of connecting and acquiring customers, the third-party cookie, was under threat, continues to be under threat. It's going to go away, according to Google. So marketers have started to shift to focus on that post-sale engagement to try to further engage existing customers and get more value from them while giving them more value to create loyalty. But in the next slide, we know that massive hurdles prevent data-driven marketing decisions. I think I talked to a lot of marketing executives, and this quote really stood out to me when I talked to this particular marketing executives. They said, hey, there is a significant lag time between getting the data and evaluating data. It's just too long, right? So there's a time constraint. But on top of that, the top challenges continue to be 21% said that there are inconsistent levels of data quality. Data quality always seems to be an issue in building data-driven marketing strategies. And I think it continues to be, and I predict will continue to be, because marketers are getting smarter about their data, right? What data deprecation has done and the massive changes in the ecosystem is forcing marketers and advertisers, media planners, marketing ops people to become a little bit more curious and understand the challenges with media data. And that, because that has typically lived in the agencies, and it will continue to do so, because agencies typically manage the paid media efforts on behalf of their brands. But it's good to see that marketers on the brand side are starting to say, okay, well, what's a good quality data on the paid media side? How does that compare with our marketing or our first party marketing data, or like owned marketing activities? Like what's the differences between the two? So they're starting to say, okay, well, there's kind of inconsistency in quality of data across the board. Second is data materializes way too fast for anybody to manage. So it becomes really important for marketing leaders to ensure that their teams have the right tools to manage the messiness of this data, and enable their business users to access the information that they need to make decisions. The final hurdle that prevents data-driven marketing decisions is actually buy-in on the value of measurement and analytics. Now, this is really interesting to me, this one, because we hear often from marketing leaders that they're data-driven, that they like to make decisions based on evidence-based performance or evidence-based customer behaviors, or what customers need. But when push comes to shove, there is a real tension that marketing leaders are faced with, in that they feel that they should invest dollars or create experiences one way where data and insights are telling them something differently. So there's this tension that they have to contend with, and oftentimes it's difficult for the marketing analytics professional to really sell in the value of measurement and analytics. So marketing leaders must create these strategies powered by data, analytics, and technologies to enhance these customer moments. Now, it's important to realize that I think when you frame your marketing strategy around the customer, and you act in vain of thinking about what is best for the customer and how you create these moments that are not only relevant in that right moment for the customer, but it keeps them engaged, right, in the short term and in the long term, right? So putting that customer at the center and putting the analytics, technology, and data centered around building these relevant customer moments not only achieves your short-term objectives, but in the long term, you're cultivating a deeper value for the customer and for the business, and a better experience. So over the next few slides, I'm going to give you some key takeaways on how you can think about three key takeaways around data, analytics, and technology, around what you could do to build those moments. And the first is rethinking how your data should enhance your customer engagement strategy. I believe that building experiences and these customer moments, it starts with the data. But the data that you have, your first party data, is valuable, and it's very available, and it's very insightful for you to drive not only those marketing specific initiatives and those moments for your existing customers, but act as a starting point to build relevant strategies to engage prospects and develop and cultivate long-term prospects into customers, into loyal customers, and eventually advocates. So it's important to start with that shift in mindset with the data. Now, we recommend to inventory these very different types of customer data sources. Now, customer data is complex. This concept of a true 360 degree of the customer, I believe, is not the narrative, the objective that you should work for in the end, but rather you get relevant data about the customer across different aspects or categories of their profile. And this includes demographic, attitudes, behaviors, sentiment, content, affinities, external data sources, their behaviors, their purchasing patterns. And it doesn't have to be every single aspect of them, because it's really hard to capture that, even from a behavior perspective. If they went online, they clicked, they made a purchase, that's really tough to capture. But if you have the mechanisms to do it and you get there in an adequate way, you could still make relevant decisions. So don't get hampered down by the data that you don't have, but rather look at the data sources that you do have to make decisions and identify areas where you need to connect and collect all additional data sources to get you to the next phase, to the next level. So you need to stitch together that customer data with the operational data to drive the experience at the right time. For example, if a customer is over 21 and a flight serves alcohol beverages, and the airline might offer that customer a drink ticket as they wait to board a delayed flight. But if the customer is under 21 or the flight doesn't serve alcohol, they shouldn't charge or they shouldn't offer. I mean, that's a very simple example of how an airline can use data. And again, it doesn't have to be stitching together the entire journey, but rather collecting the data that you do have and connecting and stitching it. And then identifying areas and pockets where you need more information that's relevant and that's necessary for you to make a decision. And that will help you shift from kind of this mass mentality, which is still relevant, right, in certain situations, to kind of a more individualized personalization. Personalization tactics can span a broad spectrum, but whether you're targeting offer content based on customer segments or leveraging machine learning algorithms to dynamically modify web experiences, there are three things you must do to ensure you're capturing the focus of that attention with the data that you do have. One is you need to deliver relevance, right? Determine the kind of value your customers want and find ways to provide utility, not just promote and hawk at the latest and greatest thing from your brand. Focus on providing information on the product experiences that may provide value for the customer or that they may find enjoyable. Second is build emotional resonance. If relevance is all about delivering value, resonance is about creating those moments, right? And using the data that you do have to create those moments that will cement customer loyalty. Across industries, making customers feel appreciated and happy and valued has the strongest connection to loyalty. And it starts with using the data that you do have. But in addition to showing resonance and delivering relevance, you need to also show restraint. Marketers assume that if they have customer information, they should use it, every last drop of it. But the fear of missing out can actually do more harm than good. 57% of adults already feel like they get too many email offers, right? And promotions, and 20% are uncomfortable with sharing information with retailers for personalized experiences. And this number has grown over the years. It's tempting to over-communicate, to use that data to over-communicate. But we encourage marketers to be very strategic about the data that they do use. So that's the first best practice, is to rethink your data to enhance your customer engagement strategy. Now, the second best practice is to use analytics to create value for the customer experience. Creating a valuable customer experience not only drives business value, which is so important, right? You're creating these experiences to help grow the company so that they can develop more products or expand their scope. But I also want you to flip this on the head, right? You need to create value for your customers, not only for the business, but value for your customers, and use data and analytics to grow the business while creating that value. Now, I want you to think about creating value in 4 different buckets. Economic value, right? Whereas am I, as a brand, saving money for the customer? Do they feel like they're getting a lot of juice from the squeeze? I think a really great example of economic value is probably promotions, right? Or probably offering competitive pricing for buying a product. Second is, ask yourself, am I creating functional value that will fulfill a purpose with the appropriate level of effort? One example I used for this is I'm a Chase credit card member, and I am also a United Airlines member. So functional value and experiential value. I'm experiencing those 2 things when I'm on board a United flight, and I don't have to pull out my credit card because they have it on file if I want to buy a drink or an extra snack. And functional value, because when I use the card, I'm actually getting points and getting miles, right? So those are the 2 other pieces of value that I'm getting as a customer. The fourth value is symbolic value. So this is does the brand make me feel like I belong to something? I think there are a few brands that do this really well. Certainly, I think Subaru owners experience symbolic value because there's a huge following and gathering of people who own Subarus, and there's outdoor activities that they go to there. They have Subaru related events. And I feel, personally having a Subaru, that being a part of that community puts me in this group of people who like the outdoors and like to experience new things, and using a Subaru can help me get there. Having that symbolic value the brand is creating a relevance to me. So I think it's important to have that, not necessarily shift, because you still need to meet your business goals, but having this view of, am I creating value for the customer with the insights that I have and what I deliver on. And our next slide really highlights how customer insights across the life cycle will help improve that customer understanding. So we talked about value, but we also need to think about how data can fuel better customer and marketing insights to help push people along the life cycle, but also in the latter stages of the life cycle, make sure that that they become loyalists and advocates, and using the right analytics to push them through that life cycle. And that would require deeper understanding of business objectives, and then waterfalling from there. What data do I need? What analysis do I want to do to get the insights that I need to make decisions? I think having this kind of holistic view of how I'm using analytics across the life cycle and the process of using it will help you identify where are there points that I need certain data and certain analytics to help me make decisions. Great. So we went through the second best practice of using analytics to adopt a better customer experience. Now, the third best practice to help you whether through these kind of uncertain business and economic times, is to align your technology that uses insights to serve customers in each moment. Now, what that visually looks like is making sure you future-proof your tech investments and validate existing capabilities that fill in the gap that both drive short-term agility and longer-term transformation. And again, this starts with the data that you use to inform your different types of technologies across those touch points. Now, this may be data that fuels a deeper customer understanding through optimization and like interactions and optimizing those interactions. It may include building the right brand strategy or the brand experience and aligning that to various touch points. And that includes, as displayed in my next slide, measuring to better understand efficacy to serve your customers. And again, this is using data to help inform the planning and budgeting and execution and measurement process for you to make better decisions. And having the technologies to fuel that will help you manage this messiness of data. So now that I've gone through kind of the 3 best practices around data analytics and technologies, I always like to wrap up with how to get started with with kind of making that shift to customer-centric data technology and analytics fueled decision making. So here are 3 quick things that you can do to get started. 1, build basic data literacy. Help your organization understand the importance of data, what's possible with first-party data, with second-party and third-party data, and where are the gaps. Understand that data literacy needs will vary based on who you're talking to. So everybody in the organization should be data aware. They should have like an understanding of like, why is data important? Are we making data decisions, data-driven decisions? But executives have different data literacy needs versus your hardcore analytics and insights users. So really, as you're building data literacy, build acumen based on business function and need. Second is gather your business users and analytics team to outline these short, medium, and long-term insights needs. Now, this is important because your analytics team may build complex models, but those models need to address the business need, and bridging that gap between the two can help probably reduce and streamline data, analytics, and technologies needed to answer those business objectives. And third is document your technology for data access, insights, and activation. And I start with documentation because you need to identify where you have gaps and, quite frankly, redundancies in your existing tech stack. And identify where data is flowing in and flowing out, and where there are opportunities to collect even more data from your consumers. So thank you for staying on, and hopefully you can apply those best practices in the future.